Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast, where summer has finally arrived. Well, I hope it has wherever you are. It's definitely a lot warmer today, and after what has been probably the worst summer of all time, I think we're deserving it. But it hasn't stopped the rain falling, and it's still pretty easy ground everywhere. But it didn't dampen our spirits last weekend as we had a nap treble. Curragh for both TC and I went in at 5-4. How was it 5-4? It should have been a lot shorter. That horse was such a good thing. Part of Callum Shepherd's treble at Ascot. And that looks like a very smart horse going forward. And Ancient Truth for Ross, probably workmanlike. Probably shouldn't be a 4-6 shot, but Ross isn't here to defend him. But he did win the Superlative Stakes last weekend at Newmarket. As mentioned, Ross not here, but TC and I very much happy to take the reins for two races this weekend, as we've got both the Weatherby Super Sprint and also the Irish Oaks over at the Curragh. But it is the Super Sprint that we're going to begin with. And as ever, SBK have been extremely generous. We have got a 25% win boost on this to a £10 max stake. So looking to get into it. And TC, before we sort of get into your selection, the nuts and bolts, what's the Super Sprint been like for you in the past? Because this is a race I've kind of grown up with. There's normally something that stands out, hands and heels to the others. But is it a race that really gets you going? How do you rate it when it comes to this part of the year?
I wouldn't say it really gets me going. I don't mind it. It's definitely not a race where I see it on the card and I'm like, oh, the super sprint. I don't mind it. I like looking at it. Obviously, it's interesting because you get the experienced 2-year-olds and you get the lightly raced 2-year-olds facing off against one another. You get horses that you feel like have plenty of room for improvement on their current marks. And then you've got the standard bearers who are usually towards the top of the market. So it's always an interesting race. This year, I'm a little bit disappointed that Ain't Nobody's not in the field, though his defection's probably not much of a shock given he just ran a few days ago. But it's still a relatively interesting contest, and hopefully we can find the winner.
Yeah, it's if for those that don't really know the conditions of it, it's a race that's worth 250,000. It's usually, some people think it deflects away to some of the pattern races, but it's 4 horses bought in a yearling sale, and their weight is given to them based on their price. So the more that you cost, essentially, the bigger your weight on your back. So if you were a cheap enough purchase and you've done pretty well, and you've got a relative, you've done relatively well in a short space of time, then you're likely to have a lighter weight. Ain't Nobody was quite an expensive horse, really, compared to the others at the sales, costing 30,000. So he might have had quite a higher weight, but he is not in the race, and we don't see the Ascot winner. But we do have an all right field, as you say, and it's the horse that Oisin Murphy is going to do a pretty low weight on. That's going to be the one that we're all taking interest in. It Ain't Two is 3-1. Vinegard was also at Royal Ascot, is 5-1. Cardi, who has been very busy, is 7-1. Mythical Composer Sevens, as is Time for Sandals and K-Burn. Those two horses, Time for Sandals and K-Burn, have got just one victory to their name. And I suppose it's horses that we don't really know how good they are, really, that type of thing, Tom. But as you said quite rightly, there is no standout. So with that in mind, there's probably a little bit of value around.
Yeah, that's certainly where I'm looking. Just before I get into my actual selection, which is a double-figure price, I'll just talk about those 3 favourites you've mentioned there. It Ain't Two is obviously the horse to beat. He's got listed form, finished second in a listed race last time. And if you go through all the form of these horses, no other horse is capable or has shown so far that they're capable of finishing runner-up in a listed race. Obviously, Oisin Murphy getting on board is a positive. He's super consistent, this horse, and he's drawn high, which is crucial because if you look at the last 10 editions of this race, no horse has ever won from a stall lower than gate 13. Now, we've got a smaller field this time around, but being drawn high, therefore towards the stand side rail, is always a positive. And the fact that It Ain't Two is drawn high is obviously a clear tick in the box for him. And it's obviously a big negative for the second favourite and third favourite right now. Vingegaard only had the 2 starts, ran really well at Royal Ascot, but has drawn 4. Time for Sandals only had 1 start and was very impressive, quickening up nicely when the gaps open at Kempton, but has drawn 1. So I think that's the difference between not only just experienced and inexperienced horses at the top of the market, but the draw is going to play a big part in the prices you're going to get on those. Now back to the draw and my selection. As I say, I want a horse drawn near side, a horse drawn high. And I was looking down the list, and to be honest, most of those drawn in double-figure stalls don't have much of a chance on form. and you kind of had to take a bit of a leap of faith, obviously the favourite aside. However, I got to do it now, and I thought, well, maybe this horse is worth a shot. He's only got 3 runs to his name. I'll go and have a look at the replays. I thought he should have won second time up. He was pinned up against the fence. He was only extricated from that gap at a late stage, and he ran on nicely. Last time he was super impressive, albeit in a pretty weak field. And then I dug a little bit deeper into the stats of trainer Adrian Keatley, because I thought, well, Adrian's had a good year with his 2-year-olds. I've seen these silks in the winner's enclosure a fair few times. And actually, he's striking at 25% with his 2-year-olds this campaign for a level stakes profit. Now, that's clearly a tick in the box. He's doing well with the juveniles. This horse is clearly improving. He's drawn well. Now, the negative is that obviously he's carrying top weight. He hasn't proved that he's capable of beating the likes of It Ain't Two, yet he's carrying more weight than him. It's not a positive. But there are still room for improvement on plenty of factors with this horse, and you're going to get around 12-1 on him. So he's going to be my selection each way, but it is a wide open race. And as I say, I want to focus on those drawn high.
Okay, I draw a deep sigh of relief with that, because you are our absolute guide when it comes to the draw and stats in general. And, as you say, if you're finding it difficult to get a selection here, I think small nuances and small factors when it comes to that is really helpful. As you say, Adrian Keatley's having a really great time with things. He went to the sales, he's bought good horses, and you've got to think that this is the type that could build on it. He's a trainer that had Irish Guinea success with jet setting back in the day, so he knows how to train a horse, does Adrian Keatley. With that in mind, as you said, mentioned about the draw, I've got 2 in here. I've gone for Cardi, drawn 14. He's rated 95. He's the highest, one of the highest rated, if not the highest rated in the field. But because of the conditions of the race, he's actually getting good amount of weight from some of his rivals. He's got 8 stone 11, whereas the likes of Vinegard has got 9-2. It Ain't Two, obviously rated 90 with 8 stone 7 on her back, makes her a really nice proposition. But I don't know. I just think the form that Cardi has shown is probably on a slightly higher level. She's ran a fair few times now, and she seems to be looking really tough, especially when she was second to Apollo Fountain last time in Deauville. And essentially, she's just a slightly better price for me in a race where, she's rated £5 clear than anything else, and she's still got quite a nice weight break with some of them. So Cardi for me, and then on a slightly different scale, Miss Collada coming out of stall 17 for Richard Hannon, who's got an excellent record in this race. He's having a slightly quieter time of things at present. He put Tom Marquand to do 8-9. This horse won with a penalty at Salisbury last time, and I thought that was very convincing over 5 furlongs. She is rated 80, so she's on the other side of the scale of it. But I think Richard Hannon always wants to throw every kind of 2-year-old he has into this race and to give him the best opportunity. And I don't think that they should be ruled out. She's 14-1. So Cardi 7-1 with SBK, I should say, and Miss Collada is 14-1. It's always a tricky one. So Weatherby Super Sprint time is at 3:35 at Newbury on Saturday. What about the Irish Oaks, TC? Because we've got a lot of Royal Ascot form coming into this at the Curragh on Saturday. This is where a lot of the big jockeys will be, the likes of Ryan Moore. You'd imagine, although it hasn't been confirmed yet, he'll be on Port Fairy, the Royal Ascot winner. Then you've got Lope de Lilas, who Willie Mullins trains. And if he's going to add an Irish classic to all of his successes, then he just sort of becomes a bit superhuman. Wathman Racing is bought into this, daughter of Lope de Vega. And then you've got a plethora of others, including Content for Aidan O'Brien, who was third to Blue Stocking last time, and many more, including Davin Menuzes, third place in the Epsom Oaks Warm Chimes. So again, probably, especially when it comes to fillies, some can be thriving coming into this and might not have shown their form earlier on in the season. So another one that's tricky to sometimes gauge, but we know how strong Aidan O'Brien has been in this division.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a question for you, actually, before I get into the analysis of this race. How do you feel about Aidan and now Donica and Joseph not declaring jockeys immediately? It seems like you get all of these group races and all of the other trainers have declared their jockey. And I understand Aidan leaves it to the last minute to actually declare his horses, but we're previewing this race. We don't even know who's on board Content and Port Fairy. It's a little bit frustrating for me. What do you think?
Yeah, it certainly is. It just doesn't seem necessary. I mean, I look at it and I see Shamey. We know Shamey Heffernan is on Davin Manuzia. He's now separated from Aidan O'Brien. So you kind of get to the point where it becomes quite obvious that the likes of Dylan Brown McMonagle, is he been declared yet? I'm sure he's with Joseph. It just leaves it to the obvious ones. Why would Ryan not be on Port Fairy? So it makes not a huge amount of sense. Willie Mullins does it all the time
Yeah.
over jumps too, and it's extraordinarily frustrating. But for me, it's a bit of a foregone conclusion. So, did you think, for your sake, it sort of changes your perspective on what's the more fancied runner?
I wouldn't say it changes my perspective, but a few weeks ago when it was Royal Ascot time, Illinois was 16-1 prior to winning his race at Royal Ascot, prior to Dex, sorry. And then Ryan Moore was on board and that horse suddenly became favourite. For example, if Ryan suddenly decided to ride Content in here, why wouldn't Content be favourite? Like that's my theory. And the likelihood is he's going to be on Port Fairy and probably Wayne Lorden will be on Content, but we just don't know for sure. And it's a bit frustrating when we're trying to preview this races that the jockeys aren't already booked when they should be, given declarations are out. But nevertheless, that's my mini rant over. Back to the race, I have no strong opinion, to be honest. It's just not a great renewal, in my opinion, of the Irish Oaks. Port Fairy deserves to head the market based on that Ribblesdale success. It still has to be seen whether she has the talent to win an Irish Oaks, but at the same time, she's not facing brilliant opposition, so she probably does. She's very gritty, she's determined, she's courageous on the front end. And if Ryan is on board and he's aggressive on her, then she's going to prove tough to overhaul, that's for sure. Lope de Lilas, the fact that she's second favourite, yet she's just won a maiden, kind of tells you the level of form isn't there for this race. However, of course, this is Willie Mullins, this is Wathnam Racing. There's always going to be market support for a horse like this, and the traders are probably going to be a little bit scared about Lope de Lilas, hence why her price is relatively short. But from a value perspective, if you bet horses that are coming off maiden wins going into Group 1s, you're going to lose money long term. So I can't be with her. That's not to say she can't win, but I can't be with her from a value punting play. The only horse that I can really provide positive comments on at a relatively decent price is Content, which is why I wanted to know the jockey booking. Last year, I was keeping an eye on her throughout the whole season. She was one of these typical 2-year-old fillies for Aidan O'Brien that he ran week in, week out, and they developed a lot of experience. We've seen him go on to have success with these horses when they entered their 3-year-old campaign, despite the fact they look extremely exposed. Now, Content didn't show that level of improvement on her first 2 starts in the French Guineas and the Coronation, but they're both Group 1s, both decent races, and we've seen on numerous occasions already this year that Aidan's horses weren't firing necessarily first time or second time up. So I'm willing to put a line through them now that I've seen that last time when she finished third to Blue Stocking, she did take that step forward. I liked how she finished that race, and albeit her pedigree doesn't fully say she wants a trip, she's obviously by Galileo, so that side's fine, but Mecca's Angel was a brilliant sprinter. It looked like she was hitting the line powerfully over 1 mile 2, so the step up in distance should be fine for her. And if you go back to that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf run last year, she was a huge eye catcher. She stayed on so powerfully late in the day to finish 4th. And if she can replicate that over this kind of trip, then she's maybe a threat here. She should be in the first 3, though I don't think there's great value each way here. She'll be around 5-1. But she could be a win play depending on who the rider is and what the tactics are. She's the only horse that really drew my attention, Content.
Okay, right. Have you got the price on Content right now? Have you backed her?
I haven't, no.
Okay, I would urge you to back her right now, because now we are recording at 11:52 on Thursday, and this is access to everyone. You can get access to the HRI site to see the status of the jockeys, right? And so this isn't some sort of information that I can gather. I just went to go and look, and as you say, on Racing Post, you can't see who's on board which Aidan O'Brien horse, but I can confirm to you that Ryan Moore is on Content.
Yeah, see, this is my point. Okay, now it works. It's made this podcast a hell of a lot better now that you said that, because some people would have been thinking, what is he ranting on about? This is the reason, because in my opinion, Content has as good a form as Port Fairy, but obviously Port Fairy was the current market leader on Racing Post and everywhere, because everyone was anticipating Ryan to be on, but there was a chance he was going to be on Content. Now, she's 5-1 at the time of recording, as you say, Thursday morning. She won't be probably when everyone listens to this. She'll probably be favourite. There you go. That's my issue with not declaring jockeys instantly.
Yeah, okay. Well, so it depends how quickly everyone comes onto it. But yeah, as you say, Ryan Moore has made the decision has been made, either however it is made, that Ryan Moore should be riding Content, but at least that gives you probably a little bit more confidence in your original selection, which was, regardless of the jockey at the time, was always going to be Content. But to this point, if you've been, I don't know, supposedly confident in her chances prior to that, even without the jockey, but it just goes to show how much they think of this filly. So yeah, Ryan Moore is on Content, Wayne Norden is on Port Fairy, and all the jockeys are now declared. And Dylan Brown McMonagle's on Galileo Dame, and I think, unless there's anything else that I need to give you, that's it. That's about it ahead of the Irish Oaks, and you can get access to all of that on the HRI site. It is quite difficult to find. I'll give you that. Okay, well, Content, probably a little bit more confidence in her now. I thought that this was quite difficult to figure out. I thought if you liked Port Fairy, then why can't you like Lava Stream? Yes, she's kind of overachieved in like quite a short space of time. This is a horse that was winning a handicap of 74 in May. Then she went and won a listed race at Goodwood, still with a rating of 79. They supplemented her at Ascot in the Ribblesdale, and again completely outran her odds of 20 to 1. She was able to keep on really nicely in the closing stages. She showed that she's definitely a filly going places, and she deserves her place in a lineup like this, in a field where she's 8 to 1. She might come in a little bit, the market might reshuffle, but I just think that potentially David O'Meara isn't one to have an Irish Oaks type, so she might just be overthought. And then Hannah Leah is another horse I like. It's a double figure price, 16 to 1. Her form has actually worked out quite nicely. She was a winner at Naas last time. That was a listed race. She had Greenfinch behind her, who went and won at Killarney last night in a pattern race. So Hannah Leah, she's by Sea the Stars from Aga Khan's Hanakia family. So she's bred to be pretty good, but we've had winning favourites in this race the last three runnings. So it could be that by the time you've listened to this, with the Ryan Moore news, Content's being slashed in. She's the current favourite, especially now TC's got on, you'd imagine. So that's the Irish Oaks. That's coming up at 3:40 on Saturday. Good racing without being vintage or anything particularly special. I suppose we do have Ascot and the King George coming up the weekend after next, and then obviously the Goodwood Festival. So we've got a lot of good, decent racing coming up. But I'd imagine there's something that you've selected that you found in and amongst the bunch of options that we have. Maybe you even found Market Raisin in Ross's replacement this weekend, TC, because he'll be chomping at the bit to be back to be previewing that.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I actually did look at Market Raisin and Carmel just because I knew Ross wasn't going to be on the pod, and I was going to put something out there. And then I thought, I can't do it. It's literally July. We're just going to have a heat wave as well, supposedly. It's supposed to be 28 degrees tomorrow in Basingstoke, which is fantastic news. But I thought there's no way that anyone listening to this wants a tip on Market Raisin, aside from Ross if he's tuning in.
For the summer plates!
Yeah, we don't want any of that. We're going to stick to the flat. Especially for my NAP and Next Best. And I'm going to go to Newmarket, actually, for the NAP. It's an evening meeting, but it's the first race in the evening meeting. So technically it's during the afternoon anyway. And it's going to be Walifi. He runs in the 420 for trainer William Haggis. Now, I'm going to go out there on a limb and say William Haggis is going to have at least 4 winners on Saturday. I think he's set for a huge day. He's got lots of entries, loads of great chances. And this is the time of year that Haggis tends to thrive. So I think he's going to have a great Saturday. Shocker, my NAP and Next Best are both trained by him. And hopefully Walifi will add to that list. Now, he's bred to be brilliant. Everyone already knows this. He's a half-brother to the fantastic Baid. He's a half to 2-time Group 1 winner Hookham. He's a half to Nakib, who also runs on Saturday, has a good chance. However, he's really yet to just produce the fact that he's so well-bred onto the track. He hasn't shown anywhere near the talent that those aforementioned siblings have. Nevertheless, last time up, I thought he was a big step forward in a first-time tongue tie, stepping down to 6 furlongs. On pedigree, he wouldn't want any part of 6 furlongs, but he's got lots of natural speed, and he tended to pull a little bit hard in his early stages when he was racing over further. So I think the drop down was fine. And actually, Jim Crowley came off the back of that and said in a post-race interview that he wanted to stick at the trip. So I'm happy they're staying at 6 furlongs. The tongue tie is kept on. And this also only gone up £3 for that victory. He's got course form. Hopefully, with a step forward, which I'm anticipating here, he'll be able to justify what I expect will be favouritism. No price at the time of filming, but given his pedigree and connections, he'll probably got a favourite. I think he's got a fantastic chance, and that's in the 420. at Newmarket. And obviously Jim Crowley's elsewhere. I think he's at Newbury. So what better replacement than William Buick? There aren't many better. That's another tick in the box. The next best is also a William Haggas trainee, and this one's at Newbury in the 520, and it's a horse called Sunfall. Now, there are a couple of nice horses against Sunfall here, which is why I didn't put Sunfall as my nap. I actually think Sunfall is probably better handicapped than Walifi is, but as I say, the opponents just put me off a touch. Circa and Battle Queen are the two that I'm talking about. Circa was a real eye-catcher first time up this year and loves Newbury. Battle Queen performed well at Royal Ascot. So Sunfall will have to be at her best to win. She's had 4 starts this year. She's won 2 of them impressively on both occasions. And then she's had 2 defeats. Firstly at Newmarket, where I didn't think she handled the track. Put a line straight through that. And then last time at Chester, again, didn't like the track. She broke slowly. She ran in snatches in the early stages. But in the final 100 yards, she took off. And it just looked like the sign of a horse who didn't relish the conditions or the track, but still has plenty of ability and was obviously well handicapped. Now she goes to a more conventional Newbury. And her chance largely is dictated by how well she breaks from the stalls. In both of those defeats, okay, she didn't like the venue on each occasion, in my opinion, but also she broke slowly. And in the 2 victories, she broke well and was ridden prominently. If she gets out nice and early into a good position under Tom Marquand, I think Sunfall will take all the beating in the 520 at Newbury.
Yeah, I like Sunfall. I saw that you put her up and I thought I'll find something else, so I give you the floor for it. And Walifi by Night of Thunder, but with all those beautifully bred relatives, so sprinting trips remain his forte. So he's doing something a bit different for the family. But as you say, William Haggas is in good form. William Buick had 4 winners at Newmarket last week, so no surprise he's stuck at HQ. So Walifi in the 420 at Newmarket and Sunfall in the 520 at Newbury. Okay, I am really looking forward to seeing Elite Status back at Newbury in the Hackwood Stakes. Yes, Regional is in here as the sort of the big opposition, but Elite Status does get £5 off him. I would think that most are kind of sort of questioning the quality of the 3-year-olds after the July Cup last week, and the fact that Van Dijk and also Inner Sheeran most notably didn't really show up. But I think Van Dijk ran well, finishing 3rd. He came back off of a trouble prep in. Also, the second place horse Swing Along's a 3-year-old. So I don't think you should really damn them all. I saw an article this week about how, and I don't know if you saw it, Tom, but I saw an article in the Racing Post this week about how we should get rid of the Commonwealth Cup. Absolute bonkers. But I will send it to you. Bonkers reports, and it made no sense at all. These 3-year-olds, I think, are of high quality. I think Inner Sheeran's just had 2 tough races, and I don't think that the softer ground really suited him there. And Millstream is a very good horse. So, look, I'm happy to give Elite Status a go. He's back at the track that he won up, where he absolutely exploded to win off the back of a break. As I said, he gets £5 off Regional. He might have had two quite tough races in pretty quick succession. Lake Forest is in the race as well, that Inner Sheeran form being tested, but we all know how much I love Elite Status, and I'm hopeful that he's got back off what I think was a small setback that took him out of the Commonwealth Cup himself. Next one for me is at Haydock, the 8 o'clock, and I have gone for Ed Walker's Visario. She is a filly who ran first time in a handicap here at Haydock last time out, where she was a little bit keen, I thought. She still kind of rallied and she ran pretty well. She actually was behind Alto that day, who went and won the Bunbury Cup last week. So the form has worked out pretty nicely. She's just a filly who's probably still learning how to race a little bit. And PJ McDonald's been booked for the ride. And PJ McDonald, full credit to the man. He's come back after a seriously long time off the track. From February until July, he was off, and he's come back and he's won 2 group races in the space of a couple of days. He's also added another success this week. A couple of successes this week. He's really doing well and coming back off the back of that big break, and also the fact that things have sort of changed with him after the whole John Dance scandals. So PJ McDonald booked for the ride, riding really well, and Visario I think is weighted well to run a big race at Haydock on Saturday. So that is all of us. We, as said, if you were looking for a summer plate winner with for Ross, considering it is the feature race meeting of the summer this weekend. Then I'm sorry that he's not here. I would suggest probably sticking with something that the Bowens are associated with. They normally do quite well in that race. But for now, we hope to have Ross back with us next week. Don't forget that the Super Sprint we're offering from SBK 25% boost on. Make sure that you get to the SBK site for lots of other offers and promotions throughout this weekend. And all new SBK users get £30 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you very soon.